Good Vibrations, I think, kind of started it, and then the Beatles kind of continued it, and then Queen had the culmination with Bohemian Rhapsody, this idea of little snippets and parts of a song to put them all together to make a really nice song. So you want to learn how to write songs? Well, you have come to the right place. Most of the videos that you're going to see in this segment of our Minnix Music channel were filmed several years ago, and for some odd reason they got stuck somewhere, and though we thought they were uploaded, it turned out that they've never been uploaded, and there's practically an entire year's worth of songwriting videos on how to write songs. And a lot of these videos never saw the light of day until now, and you get to watch them. So I hope you enjoy them. Hey, my name is Willy Minnix. I am the lead singer, main songwriter, and producer for the band The Fantastic Flying Frogs. I'm also the writer of several books, including the Mandolin Dead Man's Tuning series of books, and Lyrics and Music, Music Theory for Aspiring Songwriters, which I wrote to kind of help young songwriters that want to achieve songs that are not just your standard bubblegum pop songs, that actually kind of go beyond and help you write something that's a little more interesting. And so today, what I wanted to talk about is a technique that I was messing around with earlier today, that I think Bob Dylan used. I saw a video about Bob Dylan and how he was inspired by T.S. Eliot, and I looked on my bookshelf, and lo and behold, I had the selected poems of T.S. Eliot, and I flipped to the first one, and I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, the Love Song of J. Alfred Pewfrock, I guess this is the guy's name. If your last name is Pewfrock, I do apologize for making light of your name, but it's a very strange and unusual name. Apparently, according to, this must have been somebody's college textbook, because it has all sorts of writing, and what I found scribbled on the side somewhere in here is that this was written for his friend who died in some wars somewhere in France, maybe. Anyway, So I was reading through this, and I got to the last part of this poem, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is totally Bob Dylan inspired, because I can hear like some of Mr. Tambourine Man. There's some of the Highway 61 Revisited stuff that I know was probably inspired by this, but let me read it for you. I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think they will sing for me. No, I do not think they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing their white hair on the waves blown back, when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us, and we drown. Is that not like a Bob Dylan line? We have lingered in the chambers of the sea. I know he's like something about the windows of the sea where lovely mermaids row or something, from one of his songs. And then he also talks about, well, anyway, this whole section just reminded me of Dylan. Now, I have a song that I wrote for the Fantastic Flying Frogs that I totally admit was inspired by taking some of Bob Dylan's stuff and mixing it with Brian Wilson. Because I asked myself, and I ask myself this frequently, what would have happened if in 1965 Brian Wilson and Bob Dylan had become like best friends and started working together? Who knows? It would have been awesome. Instead of Van Dyke Parks, I think it would have been really interesting, because Bob Dylan's a musician and a poet. Van Dyke Parks was just a poet when, who knows, maybe he played on a drum or something, I don't know, or the ukulele, I forget. I do remember seeing Van Dyke Parks, I think, playing an instrument at some point, but I don't think that's his main deal. And Brian Wilson, he's not a poet, but he's an amazing musician and songwriter. And so Searching for Atlantis by the Fantastic Flying Frogs is completely a combination of these type of Dylan lyrics with the idea of good vibrations being sort of a rhapsody, basically. Good vibrations, I think, kind of started it, and then the Beatles kind of continued it, and then Queen had the culmination with Bohemian Rhapsody, this idea of little snippets and parts of a song to put them all together to make a really nice song. Brian Wilson didn't invent that. The whole idea of a rhapsody goes way back for a long time ago. But in pop music is what I mean. So what I did is I thought, well, let me sit down and see if I can work from the Eliot poem and come up with something new that is totally inspired by Eliot, like Dylan would have been inspired, and what can I come up with? So I came up with this song, or a poem, it's not a song yet because I haven't added music to it, called Seaweed. And I started by taking Eliot's line, "I have heard the mermaids singing each to each," because I thought I can build off of that. There's nothing wrong with, I don't see anything personally wrong with ripping a line out of somebody else's work and then going off and doing something with it. All the great musicians and songwriters do that. Paul Simon does it, Sting does it, Dylan did it. It's just a tradition in music. And I think with the whole copyright issue, it's gotten to be ridiculous, because I would say, like, the Ed Sheeran case is the perfect example. Ed Sheeran copies something that Marvin Gaye used, but Marvin Gaye's family sues Ed Sheeran, but Marvin Gaye copied it from Bach. So it's like, it's okay to borrow. It's just not okay to completely plagiarize and then say, okay, this is mine. And I think Bob Dylan would freely admit, oh yeah, I got that from Yeats. I think Sting would say, oh yeah, I borrowed that from Paul Simon. I know Sting borrowed from Paul Simon. Paul Simon, where did he get it from? Who knows? He would do the same thing. It's just something that we do as songwriters, so don't feel bad if it's what you need to kind of springboard you into something new. So I have heard the mermaids singing each to each. I hear them still as I walk along the beach. I do not think they will sing for me. That's the part that I thought, okay, that gives me the idea for this song. So then I go on. I hear them like I once heard you. Now, Yeats's poem is about a friend who died, and I think it seems like maybe he's dreaming about his friend. And I thought, well, it would be more of a pop song if it was about a relationship that died. And so I decided to change it, and instead of it being about his friend that passed away, now it's about, I guess, his girlfriend that he lost. So I hear them like I once heard you, singing elusive, soft, melodious, and true. I do not think you will sing for me again. And then I go on into a bridge that I kind of lifted some of Yeats out of to make this bridge. Like them, I see you riding seaward on the waves away from me, leaving me stranded in the chambers of the sea. Lovely sea girls wreathed in seaweed, red and green and brown, till another's voice awakens me and we drown. And I've changed what Yeats wrote and kind of made it more personal towards, this relationship that fell apart. But I'm also starting to think about, well, what would it be if I were to write music for this? And so I'm thinking in my head, I might do something like I did with Searching for Atlantis, where I have song in the bridge, I have like overlapping voices coming in that are either ascending or descending in maybe counterpoint. And so what I was thinking is when they sing in the chambers of the sea, when they say the word sea, another voice could come in and repeat, stranded in the chambers of the sea, stranded in the chambers of the sea, another voice could, and they could overlap like that. And then and maybe they could ascend. Then when you get to the word drown, you could have overlapping voices, drown, 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 drown. Kind of like pull me down, which is what I have in Searching for Atlantis. And the funny thing is, this is so much like Searching for Atlantis, and I've never read this poem before. I didn't read it in college, I bought this book, but I've never read Eliot. I just stuck it on my shelf in case I got around to reading it someday, and I guess today's the day. But I'm so blown away by how I was inspired by Yeats, and I didn't even know he existed because of the other people that were inspired by Yeats. So, I mean, I knew he existed, but I didn't know this poem existed. So then I go on in my poem, and I go, I have heard the sirens calling loud and glad. Now, I've changed it from the mermaids. Now he's tormented. This singer is like, I can't take this anymore. The singing, in my mind, the memory of this woman that tore his heart out. He can't get her out of his head, and he keeps hearing her voice over and over. So now it's a siren. It's tormenting him. It wasn't a mermaid, like he originally thought. Now it's become something darker. I have heard the sirens calling loud and glad, and like Ulysses, their song drove me mad. I wish you never sang for me. So there we get the idea. Okay, it's not sirens that are singing. It's his girlfriend's or his old girlfriend's voice that's driving him nuts. And then finally, like a fish gutted on a plate, mouth in silent song moving too late, your love will never sing for me. So he's basically saying, our love is dead. It's over. It's never going to sing for me again. And so it ends with again, just like it did the first verse. So that's it. That's all I've got. Now, it may turn out that I don't have enough. If I go to sit this in music, I may find, oh, I need a chorus. So in the back of my head, I probably have other songs that I've started that aren't finished that might tie into this somehow. And maybe I can work it in. And in fact, I'm thinking of a tune. I've got this piece that I recorded called Crushed Snail about, but then it's mixing metaphors. So I don't know that I want to mix that in there, but it's basically like a crushed snail in a garden. His heart's broken. And this is kind of the same. Who is texting me so much? So there you go. That's a technique for writing a song that will that you can use, that will help you maybe propel you into writing something else. And if you feel bad, like, oh, I shouldn't be borrowing from this, long dead poet, you don't have to keep those parts. You can always keep reworking the song until they're out of it. I prefer to leave them in because I like to say, hey, I'm tipping my hat at Eliot. He inspired me. Hey, I'm tipping my hat at Dylan or somebody else. I don't think it's right that you can tip your hat at somebody and then they should turn around and sue you for being inspired by them. I think that's a load of garbage. And but we'll see how all this plays out at some point. But I hope you have a good day. And if I set this to music, I will let you know. Before I let you go, though, let me just say that I would probably start with one of the stock progressions. It's a good way to start writing music for a song. And some of the stock progressions you can look up if you don't know them would be the oldies progression, the pop progression, the hymn progression, which follows Amazing Grace. There's More Than a Feeling is an interesting progression that I teach my students. And then there's Pachelbel's Canon, which is an interesting progression. So, and then there are variants on all of those. So you can kind of look into that and you can decide, oh yeah, I want to try one of those progressions myself. And maybe you can make your own poem. If you like this poem, look it up. It's I got it out of T.S. Eliot's book, Selected Poems by T.S. Eliot. You can maybe make your own version based off of this and share it with me in the comments of what you're doing. And if you write a song and record it, put it up and link to me. I would love to hear what you did with your version of the song. And speaking of which, if there are any people out there that are recording and you want to remix any of the Frog songs, I would be happy to collab with you. I'd love to hear what people can do with some of the fantastic Flying Frog songs and see if you can come up with a cool mix on something that we've released already. So anyway, I hope you have a good day. God bless you, and we'll catch you in another video.